Watch this.
It is maddening. It's also motivating because clearly we haven't told our story well yet.
And they've been trying to tell it for nearly a year. But after months of back and forth, the city of Boise says no to moving Interfaith Sanctuary. But the shelter isn't giving up just yet. The homeless problem has been one of Boise's for decades. From a poor farm set up more than a century ago to a tent city set up just years ago. We have more questions than answers. 3 states and 1,400 miles apart, and yet people are still getting Idaho and Iowa mixed up. Not getting the joke and getting mad about it. After nearly a year of public meetings, community feedback, and public outreach, Boise's Planning and Zoning Commission denied a conditional use permit to Interfaith Sanctuary. They plan to move their homeless shelter from downtown Boise on River Street to State Street, just west of downtown. And that vote wasn't even close, 5-1. Katya Stepovic was there last night and joins us now. And Katya, how did this vote, and we talked about this a little last night, how did it get to be so one-sided?
And I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out that out, Brian. I mean, up until this point, hearing public testimony and hearing, arguments from both sides, it really seemed like the commissioners were really split 50-50. But that all changed last night, and it changed when they got to item 4, and that was the adverse impact of the shelter's potential move. And that's when commissioners really started to voice their concerns about things like the negative impacts, things like increased call volumes to law enforcement and safety concerns from surrounding community and businesses in an already low-income neighborhood. Listen to this.
A conditional use permit cannot be granted due to the lack of information regarding mitigating the adverse effect that the development and/or operation of the proposed use may have upon other properties or upon the ability of political subdivisions to provide services for the proposed use.
And I just think that that level of adverse impact is significant, and I don't think the conditions in the current permit would mitigate them, because we don't really have any specific idea on how they would be mitigated.
Yeah, and the Boise Police Department, Fire Chief, and the Boise Fire Chief Department, they both gave their testimony and said that they're neutral on the matter and on the move, but still we had just the commission president vote against denying this conditional use permit. So again, the big question is what happens next, right?
Yes.
And I did talk to Jody Peterson-Steigers today, as well as proponents on the other side, and this is what they had to say.
After almost a year of back and forth, some neighbors walked away with a sigh of relief following Monday's planning and zoning meeting.
I'm personally very satisfied, and I think the word I used is flabbergasted, that there would be 5 commissioners who have really heard what the neighbors have to say.
Bobby Aitchison, a member of the Veterans Park Neighborhood Association, says for the very first time in a year, she finally feels heard.
I think that the neighbors put together a very well-researched, a very comprehensive, a very respectful point of view about how we are totally in favor of appropriate shelter for the unhoused.
But over at Interfaith, the feeling is much different.
We're all angered and a little upset about what happened last night, but we're going to stay positive and move forward.
Joel Gilmore is a shelter guest at Interfaith Sanctuary.
I came here 2020 to get sober and join Project Recovery. Things are tough right now. I'm kind of stuck myself in the middle of where I make too much to get the assisted stuff, and I make not enough to go get myself an apartment. So I'm saving and working hard.
And while he continues to save up, the concern about where he will go next is rising.
Of course, there's worry. Where are we going to sleep? Where are we going to be warm? How can we continue? How can we continue to better ourselves? There is a large contingency. There's a big, huge group of people that we're producing that are getting back into society, and we want it to continue.
But according to Executive Director at Interfaith, Jody Peterson-Steigers, Planning and Zoning's decision did not come as a surprise, but it's a disappointment.
Shelter means people won't be outside in your neighborhoods loitering and things like that. The idea that they want to say no to a shelter is saying we want more people out on the street. Putting all that blame of medical calls, police calls, incidents on our shelter and not looking at the whole homeless population within the area, that's just unfair and untrue.
Peterson-Steiger says while their current building has already been sold, she's working with the owner to keep guests there until they have another building to call home, so long as that place is the old Salvation Army building on State Street.
Well, at first it was 6 months, but then we've recently spoken and he said, look, I'm going to be reasonable. I don't want people out on the street either. As long as this process is continuing with this building, I am with you.
In the meantime, Interfaith plans to surge ahead, not backing down in their plan to call West State Street their new home.
You know, we are going to raise our voices. You know, we are going to call out our community to come and support us in this move, because now it's time for us to change this conversation.
And best of luck to Interfaith, and we just hope to move forward with solving the problem.
Yeah, and Interfaith does too. They plan to file an appeal that will go to Boise City Council, and they'll do that in the next 10 days.
And that could still take a month to get in front of Boise City Council. And we were talking about this earlier, because if they have, and credit to the landlords of the owners of the Interfaith Sanctuary building where they are now, giving them a little extra time working with them. But a guy like Joel that you talked to about the story, can we expect him to still be in the system, in Interfaith Sanctuary 6 months, 7 months, 8 months from now when they're still trying to find a new place? I mean, will this, what happens now, still affect somebody like him?
I wish I could say no, it happened. He'd be out in a month. He's been there since 2020. So it's taken him a long time to kind of get on his feet, and he's in a great position. But again, it's that affordable housing issue. Jody says she wished she could say people would be in and out in a month, but now it's taking 6 to 18 months, if not longer, because people are just waiting to get on that affordable housing list.
Wow. All right, that's a long time, and that's a big number. A lot of us in the newsroom didn't expect that number.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right, thanks, Katya. Okay, so what to do about Boise's homeless isn't a new question facing the City of Trees, obviously. In fact, how Ada County cared for its homeless goes back about 140 years, a historical segment of society we first told you about 2 summers ago.
There wasn't enough soap in all of Ada County to cleanse the stench and the horrors of this poor farm. And that's what the state inspectors found when they stumbled upon it in 1915.
A poor farm. It seems before Idaho was even a state, it had a contract to care for its indigent people. That contract was passed in 1881 by the territorial legislature that is, and it specified the indigent and the insane should be kept and cared for in an asylum in their respective county. So Ada County decided to do something like that by buying 160 acres in what is now known as the Collister neighborhood. And for decades, according to Boise State Professor Emeritus Dr. Todd Shallett, you just heard from, Boise's poor farm was a model for social progress. The inmates, as they were called, would work the land and grow hay, a temporary place for poor people to stay. But by 1915, as you heard, it had evolved into despair when state inspectors found it uninhabitable and they shut it down. 7 years later, in 1922, Boise passed an ordinance banning people from sleeping in public places, and that rule remained in the city code as it was originally written until last year, because in 2009, the city was sued for such citations and convictions. Martin versus the City of Boise claimed the ordinance violated the cruel and unusual punishment clause of the 8th Amendment. The case went on for nearly a decade, the middle of which, I should say, was the 2015 Cooper Court fiasco, where a tent city was set up outside Interfaith Sanctuary, which helped bring attention to Boise's growing homeless problem. Then in 2018, the Ninth Circuit ruled against the city in Martin v. Boise. As part of the outcome, the city could no longer cite people for sleeping in public places if there was no place else for them to go, a practice the city was following since 2014. The settlement also included $1.8 million, $1.3 million of which was to be used to create new overnight shelters or revamp existing shelters, according to the city. So what happened with that money? Well, it was to be split between shelter expansion and supportive housing. The breakdown looks like this: $440,550 for emergency shelter expansion, which the city says Interfaith Sanctuary applied for and got, to increase the services the shelter provides, but not expansion because, well, there's no room to do that in their current location, thus the need to move. The supportive housing part, nearly $900,000, like the Our Path Home program, the public-private partnership of more than 30 agencies working to end homelessness in Ada County. They built places under the Housing First model, like the New Path Community Housing for families and Valor Point for veterans. That $900,000 or nearly $900,000 still waiting to be spent, the city tells us. The Our Path Home just finished developing a supportive housing plan, and they are planning on using federal dollars first, money that comes from grants and the American Rescue Plan. And so now here we are with the city's only non-denominational overnight shelter looking for a place to expand to keep up with the city's expanding population of those experiencing homelessness. How and when they plan to do that or going to do that, still undecided. All right, so having trouble keeping up where the CDC stands on COVID-19, you might need some kind of a flow chart out there, right? You've seen the memes going around on social media, and they're pretty good, some of them. But what we're not having trouble with is seeing the rising COVID cases across the country and here in Idaho. Some medical experts are saying today focus should instead be on hospitalizations, which we talked about in yesterday's show, not so much the number of cases. They are up in Idaho, but not because of COVID, the hospitalizations I'm talking about. It's what happens around this time of year, pandemic or no pandemic. ICUs obviously increase as well. There is a rhyme and reason to still keeping track of case counts, however. It helps us monitor hotspots and how fast cases are climbing. That is important, especially now that most schools are back in session, including the state's largest school district, that'd be West Ada. What was attendance like, though, back on the first day of school yesterday? According to a spokeswoman for West Ada School District, 3.8% of students and staff were absent yesterday for medical reasons, which is about 1,650 people. So how does that compare to an average day? It's something we asked, we kind of compare them, what it looks like in terms of absences, but we don't know that number just yet. Were they all COVID? We don't know that either, not sure. And likely not really any way to tell because the district isn't tracking the cases like they used to, and at-home tests, they aren't always reported. By the way, the Boise School District, they're not going to head back to school until Monday, and everyone there will still be required to wear a mask. Maybe they missed that day in elementary school, the day when our teachers taught us about all 50 states, because some bad reviews online are letting us know who got some bad info on Idaho or Iowa. I can't tell. All right, tell us what you think about that or anything else about the 208. Grab your phones and send us a text, 208-321-5614. You can send us your questions and your comments, even your complaints. Just make sure you also include your name and the hashtag the208. We're going to share a few of yours at the end of the show, so stick around. All right, safe to say Idaho is one of this country's most unique states. In shape, for sure, from that eastern tip in the panhandle, on the eastern side of the state to the panhandle top. We're one of the most mountainous in the country, with the deepest river gorge in North America. And we have the third most acres of wilderness. Potatoes, yes, but also lentils and hops. And how about the center of the universe, right? Hi, Wallace. We could go on. However, Idaho doesn't seem to be unique enough for some people and is once again causing confusion for those buying some gem state gifts online. Hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, baby shirts. You can buy a lot of stuff from Banana Inc., the Boise-based shop with a lean toward the local. And some stuff,
for us, is just funny at this point.
Only locals would understand.
Oh yeah, it is a very popular one.
It's the Iowa shirt, and they've sold it for years.
I mean, we just had the holiday season, and it was definitely one of our best sellers.
I mean, it's Idaho, just not by name.
There's a lot of people that love that design and think it's pretty funny.
Except, apparently, 2 people who just bought one and filed online reviews to prove it. Just all of a sudden, like 2 in the last month.
2 in the last month. I couldn't believe the coincidence of 2 people leaving a 1-star review.
That Iowa baby onesie, they said, says Iowa, but that's the state of Idaho. And that Iowa Cruise sweatshirt, wrong state, exclamation point. And then went on to further explain, the shape of the state is Idaho, not Iowa. They were upset.
They were very surprised or shocked at that we would be putting Iowa on the state shape of Idaho. So it's a little inside joke for all our locals.
If you're an Idahoan, you know.
It's true. If you know, you know. Hashtag.
And many do know, according to the comments. Escobar has an aunt who asks all the time, how's life in Iowa? It cracks me up every time because we always tell her, Idaho, we live in Idaho. Gwendolyn once had an artist flying in from New York City for a lecture. She wasn't at the Boise airport when we went to get her. Apparently, she was in Des Moines and angry about nobody coming to pick her up. Megan, born and raised in Idaho, now living in West Virginia. So many people here think it's next to Illinois. LOL, laughy face emoji. Eric, also born and raised in Idaho, and went to a Denny's in D.C. When they told the waitress they were from Idaho, she responded, I hear Iowa's a great place. Really flat, though. Real Idahoans get it, Eric says. And they have, for some time. And this design, this shirt that you have, has been around for a while.
It has. So it was actually designed by Jan Bowles in the 1970s. So it must have been an inside joke even then.
At this point, though, you're probably thinking there's at least 2 people out there walking around with an Idaho-shaped shirt with Iowa on it and have no idea why or what it means.
Exactly. I wonder how many haven't even realized it yet, potentially.
Lana can sort of understand the confusion.
He starts with an I, there's an O in there, I don't know, an A. What can you do?
I don't know. Maybe look at the product description?
A warning, a disclaimer before you purchase. You actually have to re-click a button to make sure you know what the state shape is. You know, it's already on there, plain as day, that this is a joke. So, I don't know really what to do at this point. But I think, any sort of publicity is good publicity. So if it continues to get 1-star ratings, maybe that's a good thing.
Because again, if you're from Idaho, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a lot of people do, luckily, and love it.
Solana did say she did reach out to the person who bought that Iowa onesie and left the 1-star review, trying to explain the joke and even offered to return the money, but she never heard back from that person. So maybe there is a person walking around Iowa right now, not knowing how to explain the shirt that they're wearing and having to tell them, yeah, I know it says Iowa, I know, but I get it. But if you know, you know. Oh yeah, the snow is still pretty deep in some places and more on the way, especially for the mountains. And we mentioned this during yesterday's show. December in Boise, 7th snowiest on record. We normally get about 6 inches of snow. Last month, we got 15, and most of it coming about within a 2-week period. So to all of you out there who are new to Idaho and experiencing your first winter in the Gem State, you probably learned pretty quickly the do's and don'ts of getting around in said snow. It's been cold enough that it's been hanging around for a while, so maybe you've had some practice. That's also not usual. Driving around the Treasure Valley, though, you probably have seen sidewalks and parking lots that are still not cleared of the snow. Becky sent us this email yesterday saying she's been a local for 45 years and had always thought it was a rule that you had to shovel your walks or someone could sue you if they slipped on your sidewalk. Even though the sidewalk is still owned by the city, it's still your responsibility. Is this really a rule, she asks, or just common courtesy? Yes, it's common courtesy for those with wheelchairs and walkers and just plain those who just plain walk around. You want to be able to get around easily, right? But it's also really a rule. Your sidewalks do have to be clear of snow and ice. Most city ordinances are pretty similar when it comes to snow removal. City of Boise says anyone in charge of a business or a home with sidewalks out front must clear those sidewalks, like when it snows. It also says that it must be cleared every morning by 9 a.m. So, well, hope we don't plan on sleeping in. The snow should be shoveled back onto lawn or land, not into the street, they say. That just adds more problems for services like mail and trash. If you choose not to shovel your sidewalk, well, you could be charged with a misdemeanor. All right, a lot of comments sent in on the Interfaith Sanctuary move or denial of the move to State Street, like this one. A year down the road in the poor planning process, selling old site before getting planning and zoning approval. Interfaith Sanctuary is saying they haven't had a chance to tell their story yet. Seriously, that's just ridiculous. This one sent in from Arnie and Eagle. Funny, isn't it, that the first Boise Poor Farm was in the Collister neighborhood, but now the same neighborhood plain old doesn't want it there. Ironic, says Arnie. Well, it's a little bit further down State Street, but I get where you're going. It is fairly close by to that Veterans Park neighborhood. Boise should be ashamed of themselves by turning their backs on citizens who need our help with no solution, says Bob from Boise. Meanwhile, the other side is, I'm not surprised by the Boise Planning and Zoning decision, but think they made the right one. Boise needs to find a solution to the basic situation faced by the homeless population and provide a way for temporary shelter and a route out of homelessness, while not just moving the impact to another part of town, says Bill. And that one is a sentiment felt by a lot of people, of course. This one has to do with the Idaho-Iowa connection on the shirt that Banana Eek is selling. My dad lives in Michigan and constantly asks me why I don't come visit more often if I'm in Iowa. I have to correct him constantly and laugh. It's Idaho. Thanks for sending that in, Teresa. Yeah, that confusion is there a lot, we're told. We could have seen those comments on Banana Eek's post on their social media page. It says, yeah, this is a common occurrence. Idaho, Iowa, not the same place. All right, finally tonight, we wanted to introduce you to the newest member of the 2-8 family. Dogs, no strangers to this desk right here. Come on in here. Katya has a new puppy named Spud. Look at Spud. We love puppies, and it's always good television. Look at, he's so calm. This is Spud?
This is Spud. He's an 8-week-old German Shorthair Pointer.
Look at this guy.
He doesn't really like the harness. He's still getting used to it.
Like, it's a little big for this 8-month-old, but he's still pretty cute.
And he's from Malta, right? Malta, Idaho.
Malta, Idaho.
Yeah.
So what do you plan to do with old Spud?
Fiance's a big bird hunter.
Nice.
So he's gonna be put to work, this little guy.
He's gonna learn early.
We're hanging out.
Look at these big paws.
Not enjoying the crate very much, but can you say hi, Spuddy?
We're gonna have to get Mo and Spud together and really see who's the dominant dog here on the 208.
Yeah, I have
Especially
a feeling.
when Spud gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah, he's not as intimidating as he looks, I swear.
All right, we're gonna leave you some images of Spud in his surroundings, in the snow, tracking things.